What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is Friday, the 9th of January, 2026, and a lot is going on. So make sure you smash a like, and I'll give you an update on the latest ZCASH FUD. Of course, a protocol that has a huge TVL that no one's talking about. In addition to that, we want to try and track any stablecoin flows, of course, smart money buys that we've been tracking via Nansen.ai. Now, America is waking up to this. This is a $95 billion issue that needs to be discussed. So on January the 9th, the Supreme Court will deliver its ruling on Trump's Liberation Day's tariff. This matters because back in April 2025, he slapped 10 to 50% tariffs basically on every single country across the world in an act that's called the IEEPA, International Emergency Economic Powers Act from 1977. He said it was the national emergency. Lower court said, no, take it out. That's not going to work. Of course, they've ruled the tariffs were issued illegally, and but they stayed in place. And now the Supreme Court has the case. In terms of market participants, there is a 29% chance that, of course, the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump. So the likely outcome, according to these predictive markets, is that today Trump will get a court decision that doesn't favor tariffs. Okay, and in November's hearing, the justices were very skeptical. Both conservative and liberal judges questioned the president's ability to bypass Congress and impose these tariffs. So we know Trump loves a tariff, but here's what he had to say. This is absolutely hilarious. Check this out.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. Then I was reprimanded by the fake news. They said, what about love, religion, and God? I said, I agree. Let's put God number one. Let's put religion number two. Love, I don't know. We got to put that number three, I guess, right? And then it's tariff. Because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back that left us.
So there's a conundrum here. What does America do? And this is going to be a very, very important decision moving forward, regardless of where the price of Bitcoin is right now. What we're seeing on-chain is complete divergence from what we're seeing exactly on the charts. And I do believe the charts will catch up in time. But let's look at this further. So there are a couple of scenarios. One, there could be full reversal. Companies could be refunding on duties already paid. We're talking about potentially billions flowing back into the economy. Risk assets will rally in scenario one, right? Potentially. Of course, the dollar potentially weakens, historically very bullish for Bitcoin. Of course, scenario two is partial ruling, maybe a narrow that the tariffs, the tariffs are there, but they don't eliminate them entirely. And then the markets get some relief, but uncertainty continues. Scenario three would be Trump wins and the tariffs stay in place. Markets have already priced that in the current regime. So probability to the downside will be limited, but the administration already said they have other options if IEEPA gets struck down. Notably, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary of the United States of America, said he's not giving up on tariffs regardless of what the courts decide. But here's one thing. Prediction markets only give you 28% odds that these will be fully upheld. That means 72% chance of some kind of a favorable ruling for potentially the markets. And of course, crypto, Bitcoin loves uncertainty. Traditional financial systems love certainty. If the dollar weakens, there will be chaos in trade policy. Bitcoin becomes more attractive as a neutral money, and that's just one of the potential outcomes. So keep your eyes on this one, of course, and that will be very interesting to see how Bitcoin moves. Now, of course, let's talk about what's actually happening within crypto itself and not distracted by these other events, even though this one is quite pivotal. There was a massive FUD on ZCASH. I think it was Crypto Ran who did a video, And as always, when you see these things, you've got to try and take a balanced view, like what's going on really. I know ZCASH has rallied, and if you look at the overall price, it's up 10% today. So, you know, thanks to that video yesterday, and of course this coming out, since there's a lot of course, this post was quite important. A lot of people making false claims. So I think it's time to do. Some of them doing this on purpose. Let's clarify this. The team isn't exiting ZCASH, first of all. Okay, that's quite important. And they keep building and shipping. And of course, the price is showing that. But with a different entity and a funding model, we recently saw this with XLI as well. They aren't forking it. It's going to remain the same asset. The average user of ZCASH, of course, will use the product. There will be no difference. The issue seems to be arriving because the devs want to pursue a private entity to develop their products, while the board is claiming the regulatory difficulties to facilitate any such transaction. Okay, so to cut a long story short, same people doing the same thing, accelerating encrypted money on a planetary scale. Okay, and of course, you know, there are differences in opinion. And that debate remains to be seen. But anyway, every project has a risk. Of course, your base assumption itself is wrong. It isn't an issue between ZCASH and Foundation. It's between the Bootstrap Foundation and the core team. So ZCASH dev culture is starting to look a lot more like Monero style, independent builders, privacy first values, less corporate gravity. And I think this guy hits it absolutely on the nail. Now, we know privacy coins can absolutely rip, but at the same time, they can also be susceptible to any regulation changes, even though ZCASH is basically has an optional privacy feature for institutions. So more to come from ZCASH. If you're holding it, just pay attention to the space a little bit. And there is another project that I had for you, and that is Morpho. Now, what I've seen on chain, on Nansen, is quite remarkable. Morpho has a 6 billion TVL, and it has a market cap, of course, of 656 million. Fully diluted, 1.2 billion. And of course, the trading volume, about 13 million. Most of it is on institutional use. Now, Morpho, in my opinion, is the base version of Aave. Some of these entities that are specifically transacting through Morpho is particularly the big hedge funds. Okay, so here's a VIP discussion that we had. I dropped this in the VIP if you haven't seen it. Hyperliquid USDC alerts are mostly covered in Morpho. Through Morpho. Now, of course, you may see that this changes, but people like the big, massive capital, what do you call the capital ventures are now using USDC on Morpho. What that tells me is over the next few years, the growth here is going to be, in particularly with the adoption of stablecoins and in actually main focus being USDC, it's going to be quite interesting to see how all of these different backends work in favor of Morpho. I would pay attention to market cap and TVL of Morpho if you are not already doing so. And a lot of it is, thanks to Nansen, we get to see exactly what chains are doing what. So in terms of these chains, if you're holding any project, Solana's accumulation has been through the roof. Okay, Solana right now is attracting major money from top whales, second only to Tron in terms of transactions. In terms of the change. And if you look over here, fees collected, $4 million change, 62%. Solana is seeing significant money flows. Of course, Tron remains as the default go-to stablecoins protocol. But some of these changes over the last 24, 48, 7 days, optimism up by 128%. So there is a slight interest in layer twos. Linear Of course, then you got Avalanche, Starknet, even Algorand is showing up in terms of the change to these active addresses. And that's quite key because you know exactly, you don't have to buy, but if you're pushing through stable coins, and some of the reasons why the layer twos are in particularly picking up is because of more stablecoin deployments, as I'll show you in a minute. And then, of course, you've got the big ETFs. So January the 2nd, 471 million of ETFs into Bitcoin alone. January the 3rd, $667 million, the highest single day in nearly 3 months. BlackRock's IBIT leads the ETF flows. Now, this is something that, of course, we talked about. And if you look at the spot ETFs, you would actually see that majority of them right now, of course, IBIT here, negative minus 193 million. And but largely they have been positive as of late. Today is obviously a day to be risk averse, but we are obviously seeing a significantly better stablecoin flow than ETF flows. And what do I mean by that? If we look at the stable coins in general, here's a figure for projection, and this is into the current annual growth rate of 17%. And of course, it's going to be increasingly stablecoin market cap forecast is going to be massive. So by 2030 estimate, you have the bull bear, of course, and the bull case is here that we get above this green line. And I think that's where it will eventually go, especially when you look at stuff like open interest now peaking back up. We did have a plateau here. 7th of January, we saw a little bit of outflow, hence the market or the price of Bitcoin is now down to about $90,000. But we also saw an increase in volumes in the first week of January. That's really, really positive. But what I would say is do pay attention to the flows of these stable coins. All right. Next, what we have is this is called the stablecoins ERC20 exchange supplies. And what you will see here is a massive dip followed by an increase. And then from basically November, we've been dropping off. And now we decided to, there's absolutely more money in the system. If you were in doubt before, be not in doubt. There is money flowing into crypto. And that's why we've seen these crazy bounces over the last week. Of course, some of these gains are now being given back to the market with a bit of uncertainty, but this is the weekly overview. But if you're buying in terms of the longer term, if you're looking at year to date, well, what you're seeing here is crazy, 7x for ZCASH. You've got MYX doing, 5,000%. Of course, XMR, Rain doing 2.5x. And overall, if you look at this in the last 3 months, you definitely are seeing still plenty more discounts. Altcoins haven't picked up yet, so the market does remain rather cautious. Okay. So yeah, pay attention to that. Stablecoin supply into exchanges has been going up, and this is the fact. I'm not making this up. That's why the market will likely stabilize in the short term. Again, here you're seeing the stable coins moving up from their tops in October. October 6th is when we topped, and then we went into a massive sell-off. And right now we are back into positive territory. What does that mean for the price of Bitcoin? I expect we are going to see a price of $100,000. Take out 1, 2, and 3 here, and then make a decision at the top of this channel here. So Bitcoin likely to move based on all of the metric that we've seen in terms of these flows, and then get rejected from there. Potentially, if we smash through that, we do have targets to the upside, of course, up to 116 would be where Bitcoin needs to be completely bullish. Okay, whether it's a dead cat bounce or not, we still have to watch and see what happens in the market. So yeah, there you have the majority of my presentation for you in terms of the overall impact on Hyperliquid as well. we are seeing an uptake in terms of volume and users. And that is another key metric to let you know when the market is relatively positive in terms of that new user versus the volume that we have on chain. Going to the weekend, of course, do not be consumed all by crypto. Some people do it full time. Some people are investors and you just need to check your portfolio periodically. But let me know what your comments are. Of course, do you think the Supreme Court will overturn the tariffs? And if so, what is the impact on the market? God bless you. Have a lovely Friday, and I'll see you on the next video.